What is up? We are live with Kyler Burd for the Cardinal Rule TCR Live. Going to talk 2021 NFL season predictions for the Arizona Cardinals. Like to introduce to you Kyler Burd.
Hey, Joseph.
Yeah.
Hey, it's really good to be here. I appreciate it. Looking forward to talking about the Arizona Cardinals a little bit. But if you don't know me, like I said, my name is Kyler Burd. I write for RaisingZona, the fan-sided blog for the Arizona Cardinals. So you can look up my work there. You can find me on Twitter at azcard_birdseye. But I'm just a guy from New Mexico. But I've always been an Arizona Cardinals fan, sort of stuck in a state with a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans. So it's good that we have this thing, the internet, that we can talk to other Cardinals fans in other states that have no Cardinals fans. So I'm really looking forward to talking about that with you tonight.
Well, I feel your pain. You know, as we were talking before the show, I live in Georgia, and when I was in grad school, I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So I spent 5 years in the state with Cowboys fans. So, doing this content has been a great outlet and opportunity to connect with Cardinals fans. So we're going to talk predictions. I posted a video, with 50 predictions for the 2021 season. Some of them were a little more analytical. Some of them were a little more qualitative, and some of them were a little more out there. That was by design. I tried to have fun with that article. So Kyler and I are going to talk about he's going to maybe give his takes on some of the predictions that I included in my video. He's going to give some of his predictions for the season. And then we're going to talk to the chat and have you all share some of your predictions for the 2021 season. And we'll just have a good time like we always do with your questions and comments. Before we get to it, though, I want to say one thing. I have been monetized and I have received my first super chat. I'm going to tell you, Calvin, thank you so much. And I'm going to tell you, I took a screenshot and captured it of this super chat and saved it. I'm keeping screenshots of all the first when I reach 1,000 subscribers, things like that. So you, Calvin, thank you so much. You were the first person to give a super chat. So I'm keeping that, and I may do a video down the road. And I also have a little video for this. All right, there is my little applause to you for the super chat. Thank you so much. Want to real quick say hey to some of the folks that are here. We got JP, who's always reliable and you can rely on to be here. Thank you for being here, JP. Alex, who I know is one of the guys on your podcast. And he also writes for Revenge of the Birds, I believe, right?
He writes for RaisingZona.
RaisingZona. I'm sorry. Yep, my bad. I got him confused. Yes. Reese's Roundup.
Also from the podcast.
Awesome.
Hey, Reese.
Okay. Thank you for being here. We got our guy, the AZ Sports Fan. What is up, brother? 7 more days till football. I do a show with him on Monday nights, The Fan and the Professor. If you're not subscribed to AZ Sports Fan, please do so. Garrett, appreciate all your thoughtful comments. Literally set an alarm for the show today. Excitement. Man, I appreciate you being here. We're excited to have you here. We're excited to talk football. We've got Clef Jade. Apologize if I mispronounced your name. You're here. You've been here a number of times before. Thank you for being here. Big Play Slate is an Eagles fan who I've connected with through CG Sports, Ruthless Sports. Thanks for being here, man. Jordan P. 7 more days till football. I think I got everyone who's in the chat. If I missed you, I apologize. But thank you for being here. So we're going to start out and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the predictions I made. Kyler's going to mention some of his predictions, and then if you have predictions in the chat, we're gonna have some time at the end where you share your predictions. So Kyler, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you kind of take the reins and lead the discussion here. So let's get into it.
All right, that sounds good, man. I loved your predictions video. I did, and most of it, I really do agree with. I only have like a few bones to pick with you on it, but for the most part. Right. I'm really, really on board. And what I didn't do, and I should have, is take notes on what number they were, but
Okay.
but we'll go with it. The one that I think I agree with the most, just to start with that one, I think AJ Green is definitely going to be in comeback player of the year talks.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. The other part of that prediction, I think, was Robert Alford, and I'm not sold on Robert Alford. I think I've been emotionally burned by him too much to believe that he's going to be that kind of player. Although I hope he is.
Yes,
but AJ Green, he has all the talent in the world. For the 10 years that he was in Cincy, he was one of the top wide receivers in the NFL, literally minus this last 2 years with injury and just bad quarterback play and just needing a change of pace. But I think he still has it. He's still young enough to have it. And he's never in his professional career been in a position with someone like DeAndre Hopkins on the other side of him. He's been the number one guy his whole career, but he's never even had a number two of that type of caliber. And it's encouraging that he seems to have, through press conferences and stuff, talked about he likes that fact and he's comfortable with the fact that he's not the number one guy anymore. So at least he's pretty self-aware. He knows where he's at in his career. But I liked your stat line for him. And I do think 7 to 8 touchdowns is probably where he's going to end up. And I've been beating the drum on my Twitter ever since we picked him up. I really do think the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season, AJ Green might be the team's leading receiver. DeAndre Hopkins will catch up and surpass him for sure because he's DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
But in the meantime, while defenses are having to take note of the fact that AJ Green is still a legitimate threat, I think he's going to have a lot of red zone targets, and he's just going to have a lot of targets in general. Defenses will eventually figure that out, but that should just open up room for Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk as well. And I liked where you were at on Christian Kirk. Like, I do think his production's going to dip this year. If Rondale Moore's anything like we hope he is.
Yeah.
What did you say what was your prediction for Rondale Moore's stat line? 500 something yards?
That's a good question. I will bring that up right now.
Okay.
So his stat line prediction was 33 receptions for 480 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Okay. Yeah, I get behind that because he's a rookie and you just don't know what he's going to be yet.
Or that was Kirk? Or did you mean Rondale Moore or Kirk?
I meant Rondale Moore.
Sorry, that was Christian Kirk. I'm sorry. Rondale Moore was 41 receptions, 523 yards, 4 touchdowns, 22 rushes, 177 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Okay.
Yeah, I like that. Because I think Rondale Moore is going to get a lot of those screens and behind the line of scrimmage type of stuff. Yeah. And he's going to take a lot of that away from Chase Edmonds, I think.
Now, I will tell you, in terms of how I did this, you probably saw my prediction for, and I'll give you a little behind the scenes for I started by coming up with my predictions for Kyler Murray, kind of took his existing averages and stats and tried to modify him for 17 games and what I maybe a conservative estimate for him improving. But then I took his yards, completions, and touchdowns, and then distributed them amongst the receivers based on, I looked at over the last 2 years under Cliff's offense, what percent of yards did wide receiver 3 get? And I started with that and then tweaked it based on some of my thoughts on the roles. And the tough, man, I'll tell you, Rondale Moore is the one where it's tough because I think he's got the talent to get a lot more, but it's like, who are you taking those away from? I already took, a little bit away from DeAndre. I took some away from Kirk, but I think they're going to have a role for Kirk there. So yeah, that was a tough one to kind of project there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And hey, it seems like before the season starts that the Cardinals have an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. Like, that's the one position that you should feel comfortable at. Christian Kirk, he hasn't lived up to what he was supposed to be, but he's still a very serviceable wide receiver 2 on some teams. and he's going to be a wide receiver 3 for us. And Christian Kirk is your 3rd receiver. That's pretty good when AJ Green and D Hop are your 1 and 2. Right. So, and having Rondale Moore thrown in there, is Andy Isabella going to get significant snaps? Is he going to take any significant share of that? I will predict, I don't think so. Okay. I just don't see Andy Isabella having a significant role with the team this year, even though he made the roster.
Right. Yeah, I think they want to try to get something out of him and try to. I think they might want to try to use him, but there's just so many. It's just so hard with the stats. Like, I didn't do a prediction for Rondale Moore in terms of. I'm sorry for Andy Isabella for the actual for the video, but I did behind the scenes predict. Just kind of put where I thought his numbers were, and I think I had him at 17 receptions for 218 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was kind of what I had for Isabella behind the scenes, so to speak. You look, which is similar to what he's done in the past. I think to get him out there, run some deep, kind of sideline routes for him to kind of take the top off the defense. But yeah, Randy Isabella's going to play left out. Yeah, well, maybe, right?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, Andy hasn't lived up to a second-round status. That's for sure.
I would agree, and it's interesting, and I don't know how, but I just thought about it. All of the top 5 receivers on the team are all first and second-round picks, all of them.
Yeah, and
so
that's not necessarily a good sign because it tells you they haven't succeeded.
It's not necessarily great that your 5th wide receiver was a second-round pick too.
Right.
That's not always a good thing, but I think we're good there. And I back to what I started with, AJ Green, comeback player of the year. I hope so. I think he has it in him. And another thing that you talked about that I'm also 100% on board. I do think James Conner is going to end up with more touchdowns than Chase Edmonds, just simply because of the nature of what his role is supposed to be on the team.
Right.
Chase Edmonds will end up with more yards. And I can't remember where you had him, 700 something yards, I think.
For who?
For Chase.
Chase Edmonds, I had actually 936 rushing yards, 349 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns rushing.
Yeah. I can totally see that for Chase, but in my video on fantasy targets for the Cardinals, I talked about the fact that since 2018, James Conner has had 32 goal line carries. Chase Edmonds has had 1. He's just not your goal line back. So I always think about the end of the first half New England Patriots game last year. When we didn't punch it in, and that was Kenyon Drake, but with James Conner in our team, that should be a touchdown. And that's what his role is going to be throughout the year, I think. So I don't think Conner will probably get significant yardage, anything more than 500, but I could see 8 to 10 touchdowns for Conner.
Yeah, I think when they get into the red zone, or especially at goal line situations, I think it's going to be a lethal thing they have going on, where you're going to have, James Conner, the threat of him up the middle, then obviously Kyler's threat to run it, kind of to the sidelines, and then have then passing game. But I think Edmonds' rushing touchdowns are going to be those 15 to 20 yard variety. So real quick, I want to say thank you, AZ Sports Fan Mike. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate the super chat. Appreciate the support. Appreciate you being part of this community with us. And once again, I'm going to have to work on that. I guess it says, here's to you, super chatters. I guess I need to take down super chat before I play it, right? But thank you, man. Appreciate that. Appreciate your support. And again, being kind of a partner in crime is in this Arizona Cardinals community. So yeah, sorry. But I think in the red zone, I think it's going to be James Conner who gets those goal line touches for sure.
Yeah. Definitely agree. Okay.
Before we go on,
I was just going to point that out.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so Kenyon Drake is still the best running back Arizona had since David Johnson. I mean, it's, maybe. I mean, here we'll see, right? I mean, in terms of thus far track record, yeah. Chase Edmonds hasn't had that chance yet, right? So James Conner is new to us. With Kenyon Drake, and I know not everyone buys into PFF stuff, but I think their grades are generally pretty decent and a decent metric. And Kenyon Drake never graded particularly well. So he's not necessarily the most efficient runner, but I mean, again, Chase hasn't shown right stuff, so or hasn't shown it yet. But I will say, James Conner has been really good with Pittsburgh. So yeah, we'll see, right? No dap like Mike does. No, that's I don't want to copy him totally, right? I got my thing. He's got his. I will copy. Right. All right. Kenyon Drake was fumbling machine. Sorry, just want to get up. The offense line was so bad, so it happens again. I want to see all the same. Okay. Catch up on these. Who will combine for more rushing touchdowns? Kyler or Chase and Rondale and Connor? Ooh.
Oh,
that's a great question, Jordan. Pete. So what do you think, Kyler?
I think it's definitely Kyler and Chase. I do think Chase will be anywhere between 700, 900 yards, and Kyler, I think his rushing numbers will go down a little bit.
Now he's saying rushing touchdowns.
Rushing touchdowns.
Yeah,
I didn't catch that.
So
sorry,
yards,
Jordan.
No yards. Obviously, it's definitely right. But rushing touchdowns, I think that's a close one, right?
It actually is because I don't really see Kyler doing the same 11 rushing touchdowns this year, and Chase, I don't know. Chase, I see having like 2 to 4 receiving touchdowns, maybe 5 to 6 rushing. But Connor, I legitimately see anywhere between like 8 and 12 just because of the nature of his role. I'm going to go Rondale and Connor just to throw a wild prediction out.
I would go Kyler and Chase, and this is a credit to what a great question this is, Jordan, because it's so close. It's like this is like that perfect Vegas line, right? Like which one, like it's so balanced because if Kyler, maybe he has 7 or 8 touchdowns and Chase still gets 5 or so, then Connor gets 8 to 10, but does Rondale get more than 1 or 2 rushing? Maybe, so that's a really great question. PFF is anti-Cardinals. Well, I mean, listen,
a little bit
with the Buda Baker stuff. I get it. I will say I think there's 2 kinds of things with PFF. There's their grading system, and then there's their commentary and their lists they put out. And that list where Buda Baker was listed like 16th or whatever, that's not where he was graded. He graded higher. So, it is what it is, right? Is it can stop King Henry in week 1? Man, can anyone, right? He's so good.
And I don't think that that's necessarily going to be a knock on Collins if he can't. So hold back on the hot takes on Collins for a few weeks because, Derrick Henry is going to be tough week 1 for a rookie.
Right, for sure. Want to just thank CG Ruthless Sports, San Francisco content creator. Congratulations being monetized. Hey, congratulations to you too, because I know you just got monetized. Thank you, good sir. And for you, I have... I got it right that time. All right. Thank you, CG Ruthless Sports. Good dude, man. Want to catch up on the chat. So Tapatio's taking Connor and more in that. Let's see. CG, thank you again for being here. Elijah Penny would have been pretty good, but I think it's a little dude that's okay. Yeah, let's see. Paul, he runs a Arizona Cardinals discussion board. Edmonds worries you, endurance over a long season. Can he do I mean, I hear you because he got injured a while back, a couple seasons ago when he had a few carries, and he hasn't had that workload before, so we haven't seen it yet. I will say, and I think I've talked about this before, with the running backs, they've improved their offensive line, and I'm this believer that if even decent running backs, average running backs, can do well with a good offensive line. So I'm worried about his health, but I'm not as worried about the running game, if that makes sense.
Scheming and offensive line, right? Because Kyle Shanahan and the Niners have never had an elite running back, but he schemes his running backs to success. So we'll see.
Yeah. So I know we got a lot of chat comments in here, but I want to get that Kyle, you get back. You had some of your own predictions and a few more thoughts on some of the ones I had. So let's kind of get back into that for a bit, and we'll get back to the chat in a little bit.
Okay. There's a lot going on in the chat, so let me pick a controversial one.
Thank you, Simon. Congrats on progress. Chase goes down. You see being Romano. Okay, that's interesting. Do they keep the That's a great question. I'll let you answer first, and I'll give my thought. Kyler, what do you think on that?
What I think will happen versus what I think should happen are different in this scenario, because Simon, I would agree that maybe throwing Eno into Chase's role as the pass catcher and the first and second down back, that's what should happen. That's what he did at ASU. He was fantastic at it, and it seems like he's getting better and better. And you should keep Connor in his short role, but I don't see that actually happening.
Yeah,
it's more the consistent one goes down, two moves up, and just keeping like the factory system rolling is probably what a coach is more likely to do. But I agree, Simon. Maybe it should go the other way.
Yeah, I think there are certain roles I think like Connor's going to be the goal line and short yardage back in all situations, right? So I think it's not just simply the two roles. I think like they will continue to use Connor in that short yardage situations, and I think then they will probably put Eno in for the for a part of Chase's role, but I kind of see this being less of a traditional first down big back and second down big back, third down back. I see it more like what Green Bay did with Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones when they were both before Jamal Williams left, where they would play one running back for a series, right?
Yeah.
And I think Edmonds is probably going to get 70% of that or so. And in those goal line situations, they'll bring in Connor. So I think they're just more going to rotate them to keep them fresh. So I think what would probably happen is you would probably have they would then rotate between Connor and Eno. They would still put Connor in on goal line situations, but I don't think that they would have Eno as that third down back, because Connor has shown an ability to catch the ball as well.
Yeah.
So I think what might end up happening is you might see Connor then getting like 60% of the carries and Eno getting maybe 40%.
Yeah.
But Connor still is that goal line back. So anyway, but thank you, Simon, for that super chat. Thank you for the support, and of course, here's to you. I wonder if that's going to get old, but okay. Sorry, you were going to jump into one of your predictions. Sorry.
Okay, so it kind of lines up with something that Jordan P mentioned. You saying Zaven would be a Pro Bowler in his rookie year. I actually don't know how I feel about it now that I said it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Because I agreed with another one of your predictions that Collins should, because of the nature of his position and the number of stats that he's just going to get, he's going to be in the conversation for defensive rookie of the year, I think. Because he's going to fill the stat box, and that's kind of what these voters are looking at, and they'll notice that. So I think he's going to be in that conversation. Could he be a Pro Bowler? I was super impressed by Collins in the preseason. Yeah. I thought he looked incredibly impressive for a rookie at that position. So I hope that's the case. I really do. However,
go ahead. Sorry.
A Pro Bowler in his rookie year, that's Okay.
That was a bold take.
Yeah, that's a hot take.
Yeah, I will say here's the one, and when I didn't mention this in the video, but I will say this is one thing I would say that was in the back of my mind. A lot of times players don't go to the Pro Bowl and then replacement. So sometimes that bar for what constitutes a Pro Bowler is lower.
Yeah.
So, I think baked into that prediction, if I'm being completely honest, is the idea that he might not be the first, but how many off middle linebackers you can have? Maybe 4 or so on that Pro Bowl roster. All it takes is for him to get a lot of, that buzz that comes with being that defensive rookie of the year and the season he puts up, and he gets number 5 in voting, and one of those guys ahead of him, doesn't make it, so I think it's maybe more realistic than some might think, but I understand the hesitation. It's definitely one of the bolder predictions for sure.
It is. And talking about our inside linebackers, I'm 100% behind you that Simmons will probably lead the team in interceptions because of his positional flexibility. We don't even know really where we're going to see him this year. He took reps with DBs in training camp. He seemed a little kind of hesitant in the run game to me, but he was elite in coverage. So how do you think Simmons is actually going to be used this year? Is he a pure inside linebacker, or is he a flex safety, whatever he does?
That's a really great question. We talked this a little bit. I did a podcast with Walter Mitchell, on a couple of them actually. And we talked about this, and I think what's going to happen for now is I think that we're going to see in those rare situations where they're actually doing a true 3-4 defense. I think he's going to be in there with Collins. He's going to be the will linebacker, who is the one who's a little more coverage oriented, with Collins as the Mike. But I think when we see those nickel looks, or dime or whatever, I think you're going to see the 3 linebackers in there sometimes with, Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks will probably be the will. I think they'll keep Collins at the Mike. And I think there'll be some of when they have that in there, I think they're going to move. That's the point where they're going to move Simmons around. Sometimes he'll be playing safety. Sometimes he'll be covering the tight end. Sometimes they'll have him as another slot corner. So I think there will be sometimes certain points will be playing a true middle linebacker, but I really do think they're going to move him around in terms of what he's doing, but he's going to stay on the field a lot. And that's part of the reason for that prediction, because they'll be in those apparent running downs, they with those heavy offensive sets, they'll keep him in there. And in those rare cases that they're doing a play action, he's going to be one of those guys, going out covering the tight end or the running back. And in those nickel and dime looks, he's going to be all over the place, covering a tight end, covering a big receiver. So I think, they're going to move him around a lot. I think more than last year.
Okay, I got 2 things on that. I think you're right about Isaiah Simmons' role, and in complete contrast to last year, I think it's going to be an incredibly rare exception when Isaiah Simmons isn't on the field, because he has the experience now, and you just don't leave a freak athlete like Simmons off the field. That's one of the worst things you can do. But to go with that, I think a bold prediction from me is we're going to see much more of Jordan Hicks than anyone currently thinks we are, because we run a 3-4 and we historically have, minus the bad year that we don't talk about.
Right.
We've run a 3-4 for a long time. So we're used to the 2 inside linebackers, but I think there will be a lot of situations that Vance Joseph has shown to be a pretty creative defensive coordinator. And the number of times, I don't have a number on this, but this is just like going through my memory, that we played a base 3-4 in 2020 wasn't that much. Yeah. Vance Joseph dialed up ridiculous packages at times. So if we see Jordan Hicks on 20-25% of the snaps this year, I wouldn't be surprised, because I think there's a reason he's still on the team.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, in the modern NFL, they always say that the nickel is your base defense most of the time because there's so many 3 and 4 wide receiver sets, and even tight ends who are such, athletic freaks and such. So, yeah, I mean, I think, I think we'll see him somewhere. If I had to venture a guess, I think Hicks will get somewhere between 300 and 400 snaps, and that's not quite full time. But that's a decent number. Full-time linebackers usually like 800 snaps or thereabouts. So I think 300 to 400 snaps for Hicks is absolutely, a possibility. So yeah,
I agree.
Josh Espedal says Cardinals are most definitely going to make the playoffs unless injuries curse this year. The NFC West will be determined by which team out of 4 stays the healthiest. Man, I really hope you're right about them making the playoffs. That was one of my predictions. I think you're absolutely right. The health is going to matter. Such a brutal division. So, yeah. Sorry, yeah. What's the next prediction that you have or response to one of my predictions you wanted to note?
This is something that I hope happens.
Okay.
Because it's going to be a giant determining factor for the success of the team. And that's Byron Murphy Jr. being in the top 15 in that position. We've all talked about what Malcolm Butler retiring means to this team, and it's not good things. Even when we signed Malcolm Butler, it's not like he was a world changer at cornerback, but good enough to get us through. He was a serviceable veteran that could help develop the younger guys, and he played at a pretty high level last year in Tennessee. So I thought he was a good signing. But with him gone, that moves the entire roster up a spot, and we don't have any great experienced veteran depth at cornerback. So this kind of has to be the year that Byron Murphy shows that he's the future CB1 for the Cardinals. Because if he is, that puts us in a pretty tenable position if Marco Wilson turns into what everyone hopes he's going to be. So I don't know that I necessarily believe your prediction that he's going to be a top 15 guy, but I think he's a really talented cornerback. I'm just worried about him moving back to the outside when it seems that he's so much more comfortable as a slot corner.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I will say, and this is, again, maybe hedging this a little bit on my end. I mentioned top 15 in PFF grading. I will say, that's not as high a bar as you think in terms of the grade, because that's still a grade in the low to mid 70s. Malcolm Butler, I think, was in that top 15, and some really good quarterbacks don't always grade as high as you think. But he looked good in the preseason, and if Butler and Marco Wilson can really be better than people think, that could really help us out a lot. Paul G has a question for us. Do we think the single-digit numbers on defense will lead to more interceptions? Sims at 9, Baker at 3, also with Collins number 25. What do you think, Kyler?
I thought it was interesting that when the number change happened, Tom Brady sort of talked about this, that he hated the number change with identifying the mic and just really quickly dissecting what's going on. But I don't really think it will, because the movement of the players is the same, and that sort of like instinctual look of where a player's moving. I don't really think so. Maybe for rookies, but even then, the number rules in college are so different anyway that no, I don't think.
I was going to say, I wonder if the rookies actually would be better because they just came out of college where they're used to those numbers. And I think you're right. I think it's more the color jersey is what matters more than anything.
Yeah.
And they see, the player movement, they see the guys who are covering. I don't think the numbers are really going to make a difference. At least that's my view. Yeah, okay. Got just a couple of comments about the linebackers. Simmons better Sam than inside linebacker, better coverage back than Xavier. Yeah. Okay. So next prediction that you'd like to talk about, yours or mine?
All right. Let me find one that I disagreed with.
Okay.
and I know that you are doing this to be optimistic,
Mm-hmm.
but I just can't get there as a Cardinal fan.
Okay.
Matt Prater making every game winner.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't fathom it from a Cardinals kicker, but I do think Matt Prater's probably one of the most talented kickers we've had in the last decade. And hopefully there aren't a ton of game-winning situations that we need from him. But I can't – that wouldn't be my prediction just because I can't imagine that being the case.
I mean, we've been hurt by kickers before. We're just kind of I get it. We're kind of snake bitten. So, we'll see, right? Again, these are all optimistic predictions. He looked good in the preseason. He's got a good track record, but at the same time, how many game-winning kicks is a kicker going to get in the season? 2 to 4, sometimes more.
Yeah.
It's not a ton, right?
No.
I hear you though. Okay. Gotcha. So I'm just looking through the chat here. Okay. I'm not gonna. Listen. I don't hate that. I get your hesitation. So yeah. Another prediction you might have.
It's both a prediction and just optimism. I think Kyler Murray's going to have more than 40 combined touchdowns this year.
Okay.
I don't yet know how he's going to do it, because I don't think his leg talent is going anywhere anytime soon. Mm-hmm. Super young guy. Part of that's going to depend on Cliff and how much he wants to use designed quarterback runs, because hopefully he doesn't have to run that much on his own just to escape pressure. But I think his passing touchdowns will go up significantly this year. I do. I think his rushing will go down a little bit, maybe eight rushing touchdowns seems about right for Kyler. But I could easily see a 4,500 passing yard season from Kyler Murray. He finally has people to throw to that he seems comfortable with. He's made his public comments that these are the best weapons he's ever had. Like, he has nothing to complain about anymore, which I don't think is something that he would have ever said in his first 2 seasons. And he just seems more comfortable as a leader. So if that pocket presence goes up, I could see the 4,500 passing yards and 35, 38 passing touchdowns. And if that's the case, I think Kyler Murray is a top 3 MVP vote. I don't think he's going to win it. I agree with you. Unless they have some crazy success, winning just significantly more games than the prediction. If they win 13 games or something, maybe he does win MVP. But I think he's going to be, without injury, like last year, in the top 3 for voting of MVP.
Yeah, here's hoping, right? Yeah. And, my projection for his yards and touchdowns was not, it involved him getting better, but it wasn't a huge step forward it wasn't a huge leap. I think what I did is I projected him having the same amount of improvement from year 2 to 3 that he had from year 1 to 2, and then added a modifier for that 17th game. So I had him at, 43.6 yards, but listen, I could see him taking a big leap and getting to those 4,700 yards. If everything's, hitting on all cylinders, that's absolutely possible. Kimmy Dolo, again, apologize if I mispronounced your name. May have missed what thoughts on 49ers signing Josh Norman. What do you think about that, Kyler?
I think it says more about them not being comfortable with their secondary than it does about the talent level of Josh Norman currently. He had some great year. He had 2 to 3 really good years, maybe. Yeah. But I don't see him as a significant addition to the NFC West that should do anything to scare our receiving core.
Yeah, I think at this point in his career, I think he's no better than like where Robert Alford's at, and probably a comparable sort of a guy, veteran who's been around. He's fine for depth. He's not a difference maker, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So did you have any other predictions that you wanted to talk about of your own or mine, or we can go to the chat now? Was there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Well, let's go through the schedule.
Okay.
I know that you had a schedule of your games and predictions.
Yeah, let me bring that up, and it's going to cover my face up for a minute. But this is the same graphic from my video. So, hey, there I am.
All right. There you are.
Okay, so here's the wins and losses that I had projected. So, yeah. So, did you have any thoughts on any of these specific games, or where did you fall on this?
Yes, I do. Although I think I'm probably going to end up around 10-7, just like you. Mm-hmm. That seems like the reasonable point for the Cardinals right now. Tennessee, unfortunately, I do think that's a loss. Mm-hmm. It's just rookie cornerbacks and rookie middle linebacker versus an incredibly potent offense with Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. So, yeah, that's probably going to be a loss. Minnesota, it has to be a win for pride purposes, and it has to be a big win. And I personally do hope that Hopkins burns Patrick Peterson pretty bad in that game.
Right.
Jacksonville, I'm now scared of solely because I lost to them in my Madden franchise. And I don't know how, but that should definitely be a win. I agree with both LA Rams. Until we beat them, I cannot in good conscience say that we're going to win any of those games. We're what, 0-8 against Sean McVay. So until we finally snag one, they're both going to be penciled in as losses. Right. San Francisco, I think we split. So I do agree with that. Although I wouldn't be surprised if it's flipped with San Francisco as well, just the locations of the win and loss. Cleveland, I think, is going to be a win, actually. I think they're better as a whole team, as a unit, and I would say Kevin Stefanski is a better coach than Cliff Kingsbury. So if Stefanski outcoaches Kingsbury, I won't be surprised by that. But I think Kyler's a more talented quarterback than Baker Mayfield, and I think our wide receiver core is more talented than Cleveland's currently. So I think that's going to be a win. Where are we?
Houston.
Although I would not be surprised if that's one of the surprise losses.
Oh, God.
But also, we hope to win that one for pride purposes. We have too many Texan players on our roster to lose that one. Green Bay, that one I didn't know until Aaron Rodgers decided to come back. But now that he's back, it's probably unfortunately going to be a loss, which is unfortunate because it's the most expensive game on this schedule. When I looked at tickets, they were like $300-400.
Oh, wow.
So I would hate to pay that much and witness a loss. But I think it's just a better prepared and a team that's farther along in their journey to a Super Bowl than the Cardinals right now. Carolina win. Seattle, I actually see wins again. I see sweeping Seattle.
Okay.
I think Seattle's going to take a step back this year. There's just too much internal stuff going on in Seattle, it seems like. Russell Wilson's great, and he can always beat you pretty much on his own. But they just don't have an incredibly talented roster top to bottom. They never really have. Russell Wilson's always sort of taken them to wins. But I think this might be the year that kind of runs out for them.
Your buddies question your call on that. Listen, we've had a good record against them, yeah.
We do. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
However, the Josh Rosen win in Lambeau was a fluke. You can't count on that happening again, I don't think.
Yeah.
Chicago, this should be a win. They don't even know what they're doing at quarterback right now. And if you have two quarterbacks, you have none, right?
Right.
Rams lost until they prove us differently. Detroit win. Indy win because I don't trust Carson Wentz to stay healthy that long.
Right.
Dallas should definitely be a win, even though it's a really talented roster for Dallas. But it should be a win. And then Seattle, another win. So I think I came out at 11-6.
Okay. I wasn't doing the math, but okay. 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 that's interesting. I think Cleveland's an interesting one because a lot of people think they have one of the best rosters in the NFL. I think that's probably accurate, but at the same time, I feel like they're a little bit of a paper tiger, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a question I wanted to get at. What does Cliff need to do to improve Cardinals letting penalties? I'm going to tell you, he's already done half of what he needs to do. They let Patrick Peterson walk. If you've watched enough of my stuff, you've seen me repeat the stat over and over again. Patrick Peterson had 10 penalties, led all cornerbacks. They let Dre Kirkpatrick walk. He was tied for third with 9. They moved on from Mason Cole and brought in Rodney Hudson. Robert Alford's, when he, looking back at his days with Atlanta, he still gave up a bit of, had a fair number of flags. But I think they've already done a lot to help that with the improvements on offensive line and with, jettisoning those 2 cornerbacks. But, we're going to have a rookie cornerback, Wilson, in there, so that might still lead to some flags. I don't know. Was there anything else that you would want to add to that?
No, I think you're spot on. You got rid of the players that consistently showed themselves to commit penalties. And Patrick Peterson, I don't want to talk trash about him just because he talks trash about us now. But you kind of see it when players of his caliber are getting older, penalties out of frustration because they're not shutting players down like they used to so easily. They don't have the speed that they used to. So you sort of get a little sloppy in trying to prevent passes. But getting rid of them, I do agree. I'm a little afraid of Marco Wilson. I just don't want him to throw a shoe again or anything.
Right. I feel bad for the kid. He's going to have a hard time.
Me too.
Down, right. But yeah, I think Jordan makes a good point here. And I actually had Kyler's rushing yards decrease a little bit despite the additional game for this very reason. I think he's still going to take his, there's going to be some design runs. And when he sees an opening that's too good to pass up, he's going to make that happen. But there's going to be fewer of those plays where he gets pressure up the middle and he immediately has to take off. And I think that's going to cut some of those. But hopefully what that also means is those 150 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns equals another, 500 yards passing and 7 passing touchdowns, hopefully, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, okay. This who gets more interceptions, Kyler or our defense?
Oh man. Sad. I don't think this is necessarily a knock on Kyler. Probably Kyler. He's had 12 in both of his seasons so far. I think he'll cut down on that hopefully a little bit, although it might be the same if he is throwing more.
Yeah.
And our defense just the past few years has not historically been great at interceptions. I think we went until like week 7 in 2019 before our first interception. So I don't know. Probably Kyler.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the best player in our secondary is not a ball hawk. Budda Baker, had 2 interceptions, I think, last year, but those were like his first 2 of his pro career, I think. So, Jalen Thompson's maybe a little more of a ball hawk if you can stay healthy. Robert Alford a little bit. But I just don't think we have a huge amount of ball hawks in our defensive backfield. I mean, listen, I predicted and you agreed that one of our linebackers was going to lead in interception. So I would probably agree with you there. Yeah. So I think unless there was any other predictions you wanted to make sure and get in there, Kyler, we're going to kind of go through the chat. So if you have questions or comments that we haven't got to, please put them in chat. And it's always helpful if you put a big letter Q in front of it. But we'll try to get as many as we can. Let's see. I think this is talking more about, what we were talking about before. Just kind of trying to catch up. Kyle leap will not be as huge as Josh Allen because Josh Allen was not as good as Kyle. Yeah. I mean, Josh Allen's leap was huge. So, yeah.
Gigantic. But I think Kyler Murray has the bigger ceiling than Josh Allen.
Kyler's going to be perfect. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I will say for me, one of the players there are 2 players I will admit I was wrong on coming out of the draft that I didn't think were going to be good. Josh Allen is one of them because quarterbacks coming out of college who have accuracy issues don't usually improve the way he has.
Yeah.
And then DK Metcalf was the other one because he's had that straight line speed, but his 3-cone and the change of direction stuff was horrendous for him. I just didn't think. But listen, he proved me wrong, right? All right, so I'm going to kind of go through try to get caught up here. Let's see. Okay, we got a question from JP. How many snaps do you think JJ will play?
I think Vance Joseph has said 60 to 65%.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine he's going to stick to that. JJ will want to play more, but he's going to be on a snap count for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you go that 60, 65%, that's, somewhere around maybe 500, 550 snaps. So that might be a good number. I think if he's healthy, they're going to have a hard time keeping him off the field and justifying that. So I'm going to say 700 snaps. I'm going to be optimistic, say he stays healthy and that they actually get him on the field more. Prediction for Gardeck. So I'll let you kind of start. What are your thoughts? What do you expect to see out of him this year?
Unfortunately, because I love the guy, as long as Chandler Jones stays healthy, we should hope to see less of Gardeck. Because you want your best players out on the field. Gardeck's cool and he has a great personality, but there's no way that he can maintain a sack for every 7 snaps or whatever the crazy stat line was last year out of his 93 snaps. So that's not something that we can expect to happen again. And you would much rather have, I think, a Chandler Jones healthy the entire year and a JJ Watt healthy the entire year, even Kennard healthy. So he will have a role and he'll be a rotational guy.
Yeah, I think you're right. They have a lot of depth. So if no one gets injured between Marcus Golden and then Dimikaji and obviously Chandler Jones and Kennard, I think we might see him get between 4 and 6 sacks maybe, because they bring him in once in a while because he's so efficient but I think he's mostly going to be a special teams contributor at this point this year. How many wins do we get this season? So we went over that a little bit, but I had 10 wins, and I think you had us with 11 wins, right?
I had 11.
Yeah. Way too early to draft. What position do we draft first?
So it better not be linebacker,
right?
So.
Yeah. So that's a great question because part of that is what do we think they should versus what will they, because their philosophy might be different than ours. But what do you think? What do you think? And maybe I'll expand this question. In the first 2 rounds, what positions do you think they should, and do you think they'll go in a different direction than what you think they should?
Okay, so I think regardless of how Marco Wilson develops this year, cornerback should be in one of the first 2 rounds. And I think it will be. But I also think both will be defensive, actually. I think one should be a corner and one should probably be a tackle.
Okay.
A defensive tackle.
Right. Right. In terms of what I think, I agree. Even if Wilson ends up being really, really good, and even if Gowan ends up being as good as we hope, I still think you should probably if they both look really good, then maybe not. Maybe you go another corner later. But if only Wilson pops, I think you need to go corner. And then I'm going to say tight end in the second round. I'm
not mad at that.
Yeah, neglected that. But I also think that defensive tackle is a good call for a position they could go early. But I could also see if Chandler Jones leaves, going pass rusher, right? Edge rusher. I don't think they go offensive line. Historically they go middle or late rounds, and they just they just don't really invest a lot of early draft capital on that. But yeah, okay. Question: should we address defense again in the first 3 rounds draft? Okay, yeah. So we're kind of talking about that. But I will say, I think that when I look at this offense, I think when you've got a quarterback like Kyler Murray, and you've got a receiver like Nuke Hopkins and a decent offensive line, You can find the pieces in free agency and stuff to kind of make that offense work. And if you can build a good defense around him, that's winning football. So I think so. Okay, I'll let you start this. Will we make a trade soon? And for what position do you think there'll be a trade coming?
Honestly, no. I think Keim, he might not be comfortable with the cornerback position, but I don't think we're going to be making a trade. I really can't even see a big trade before the trade deadline. Keim just seems, for some reason, incredibly confident in this roster. And I think as a point of his personal pride, he's not going to make a giant trade. But maybe I do think we will pick up some additional, at least experienced cornerbacks to throw in the room just for some depth. But no, I can't see a trade. Can you?
No, I don't think so. Not at this point. Nothing significant. I think if there were maybe a player for player trade to trade away someone at a position of depth for a position we need, but I think Keim likes those big trades, but it's past that. I know there's people who think we should still trade for a cornerback, but I think those trades, if they were going to happen, would already happen. At this point, I think you're churning the roster with free agents and practice squad guys. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Watt and Chandler on the same side.
Okay, Reese.
Sometimes they're going to move Watt all around, though, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think they'll do that and try to overload whatever side they got him on sometimes. But I think Watt's historically been moved all up and down that defense. So sometimes,
yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's just going to be matchup dependent. If you do have an opponent who just seems to have a very weak side, then your best bet is to just overload that side and let the quarterback deal with the consequences. But there's also value in holding both sides and just containing. So it depends on the matchup.
Yep. Okay, let's see. Let me see if there's any other questions. We should line Rondo up a running back, have him do some run plays. He's explosive like triple. Maybe, yeah. I mean, I do think he's going to get a lot of runs from like jet sweeps and things like that.
Yeah,
maybe they do that sometimes. Yeah. Playoffs, yes, no.
Yeah. If this has to be a playoff team for Cliff Kingsbury, so I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah. I will admit this is an optimistic take because it's a tough division. But I'm going to say yes. And listen, my guy CG Sports, Ruthless might still be in here. So if he is, not nothing personal, but I don't buy the Niners with their quarterback situation.
Yeah.
I think they've got a good defense. I think there's some good players. I do think Shanahan's a good coach despite the record not being great. But I'm not sold on them, and I think they're not going to be. I think they're going to struggle because of the quarterback situation, and I do think Seattle's defense, and Seattle's got some issues too. I still think they'll be good. Russell, it's hard to count out Russell, but I think it's going to be more competitive than people think. So yeah,
agreed.
New GM next year, then drafting running back offensive line first, very high, maybe. Yeah, okay. Just sorry, I think these are some conversations. Okay, at the end of the year, who will be our wide receiver 3? Moore, Kirk, AJ, maybe Doc. Okay, so what do you think?
I think it's going to be Moore. I loved every snap I saw of him in the preseason because he actually looks as advertised. So we got burned with our second round, Andy Isabella, but Rondale Moore, if he stays healthy throughout the year, he should be our number 3 guy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna, and I tend, when I look at the receiver position, I try to look at more as the outside receivers in the slot, and so I think you're gonna obviously have Nuke and AJ Green as those outside receivers, and then you might see a few other guys in there here and there, but I think they are going to platoon that slot receiver Moore and Kirk, and then when they go 4 wide receiver sets, have them both in. And man, I think it's going to be really close. Almost look like a timeshare, but I think Moore is going to see more of those short underneath kinds of receptions, and the bubble screens and things like that. So I think using him in that capacity will probably bump his numbers up more than Kirk. But I think when I think they like Kirk, and I'll tell you, in the preseason, you can't read into stats and performances too much in the preseason. But one thing I do pay close attention to is how many snaps someone is getting and how much they're on the field. And I talked about this in the podcast with Walter Mitchell. If someone is not playing many snaps or any snaps in the preseason, that tells me the team's made up their mind about that player, whether they're going to be on the roster and their role for them, right? Good or bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Christian Kirk did not play much.
No, he didn't.
Right. So and obviously it's not because they didn't have him didn't want him on the team or didn't have a role for him. And, if they were trying to trade him, you think they'd maybe put him out there more so people, display him. But I think the fact that they didn't play him much in the preseason is a sign that they see him as one of their key guys that they have a role for. So I think the rumors of his demise are premature, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the team, and it seems like Kyler Murray and Kingsbury, they like Kirk, so he's going to stick around.
Yeah. I think we are the only NFC West team with a first rounder, right?
Yep.
So, so there you go. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Vance Joseph seems to be blitzing Collins on preseason. I believe a combination of Watt on the inside and Collins would be a potent combo. Yeah, I mean, he likes bringing blitzes all over the place and linebackers and showing blitz and then dropping players back. So, I think, man, I tell you what, I think Simmons and Collins are both going to get between 3 and 5 sacks in this defense because of what they're going to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Let's see. All right. Arizona Animal. He's always got some strong opinions. If you start 1-3, Kime will make a trade, full panic mode trade. Maybe. I don't think so, but hey, who knows? Maybe he'll trade for your guy, Najee Harris, that you love. All right. JJ. It's good. Yeah, it's good scare tactic. Let's see. Oh, got Pinor. Pinor is a really good dude. I met him through the 49ers, some of the live streams there. Do you think realistic for Seahawks to end up at the 4th place this year? Man, I think it's realistic for any of these teams to end up at 4th place and still potentially have a winning record, though I think it's more likely 8 wins for that last place team. Any order, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, to me, if you told, like, the teams that I think, I mean, a lot of people are picking the Cardinals to be the 4th place team, and I get it. Until we show something, people outside of Arizona aren't going to pick us, and that's fair. But the 2 teams that, to me, I think have the most likely to finish last, to me, are San Francisco and Seattle, because of some of the quarterback issues for San Francisco and the defense for Seattle. What do you think?
I agree. Like earlier I said, I think Seattle's going to take a dip this year. I can see Arizona sweeping them. And I think, Seahawks or 49ers are your best bets to finish 4th. But anyone could. Maybe all the hype around the Rams just doesn't pan out. Like, you never know. It has to be the most hyper competitive division in the NFL. So, and even being the 4th team in the NFC West is usually better than the 2nd team in most divisions. So anything can happen.
Whoever finishes last place in this division is going to be the best last place team in the NFL, and could potentially win in, like, the NFC East or another division like that. If I see bubble screens options, I'm gonna listen out, Aaron. And when Fitz was still with us, right? So many screens to Fitz for 5 yards, and throwing those bubble screens to Nuke Hopkins, and man, Rondale Moore's the guy who needs to get those. He can do something with those, right? I think, though, I will say, I think we're still going to see some of those to Nuke, because I think they like to get the ball in his hands to get him in the game a little bit sometimes. I think we will still see some of those, but the ones that used to go to Larry Fitzgerald are going to Rondale Moore and maybe a little bit Christian Kirk. We got a question. Who will have the biggest? Oh, I like this. Okay, who have the biggest breakout season between Jalen Thompson, Chase Edmonds, Rondale, or Josh Jones? Okay, I'll let you kind of start with this one.
Okay, I think Jalen Thompson. I love that guy, and if he can play a full 17-game stretch this season, I think he's the perfect complement to Budda Baker, and that the safety room is probably it's one of our best rooms. It's a really, really strong group. Yeah, I think Jalen Thompson's going to make a leap.
I like that, and that was one of my predictions, actually, right? That he would have a breakout season, and that people would talk about this as one of the best safety tandems. So Josh Jones is interesting. I think he could grab hold of that right guard position and hold on to it. The tough part is, like, you don't think of offensive linemen as having breakout seasons because you don't just you don't get stats from him. It's not
you don't get a box score for the right guard,
right? But he could be like he could hold if he becomes a solid starting right guard and grades well. He could be that guy who deserves it but doesn't get the credit. Rondale Moore's going to have a lot of flashy plays, so I think he might get the most attention. Edmonds is going to probably get the most volume if he's healthy, right? I mean, these are four really great names. I would say I think it depends how you define it, right? Breakout season. Well, just because of the volume, if he's healthy, it's Chase Edmonds is the guy you probably have to look at. He's going to get more touches than anyone. But I think Jalen is the guy a lot of people are sleeping on, that if he's healthy, I mean, he's graded well, in the 70s. If he's healthy, I think I like him as a pick, Cliff Screensbury, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Would you rather have Baker Mayfield or Kirk Cousins? Ooh, do I have to pick one of them? Baker. I would take Baker. But I'm not a big believer in Kirk Cousins. He's fine. He's an okay quarterback, but he's, I'd probably take Baker, but I'd rather not have either of them compared to Kyler for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Want to see us trade Kirk for someone? I think if that was going to happen, it probably would have already happened, but I've talked about this in a few other streams and videos, like, he's on the last year of his rookie deal. I don't know that they're going to re-sign him for the amount of money it's going to take, right? So if you're if you're going to trade one of the receivers, I know a lot of people want him to trade Isabella, but Isabella doesn't have Kirk has more trade value. So I don't know, but I don't think it's going to happen. We were kind of already talked about that, right? So let me see. See if there's some questions. Okay, here's a question. Do you think Kyler will be getting a contract extension by the end of the year? And if so, do you think he'll be the highest paid? Will that be good value? I'll let you go ahead and start with that.
I don't know if he's going to get an extension by the end of this year, just simply because they don't have to yet. But will he end up being the highest paid quarterback? Yeah, probably. Josh Allen kind of reset the market for a young quarterback for just insane amounts of money. And I don't know that you can justify paying Josh Allen more than Kyler Murray. But I don't think it's going to be by the end of the year. I don't know about you.
I'll tell you what, I think if he is playing well and they're trending towards the playoffs, I totally see that. And I would say, will it be the highest paid? Probably. If not, it'll be close.
Yeah.
Will it be a good value? I'll tell you, I say yes. And I'll tell you, here's my one. Okay. If you know your quarterback is that guy, right, and you believe he's that guy, it actually behooves you to get that extension earlier, because like being the highest paid quarterback lasts for about 3 months, right?
Yeah, usually.
And that contract that seems really big now, a year from now is a deal, right? So like with that in mind, like, if they're the guy, or you're confident that they're the guy that you want to build around, and you're gonna have to do that big contract, get it now, because the per year average, if you wait till next year, might be 5-10 million more a year, right?
Yeah.
So I say yes, and I think it will. If I think it will be a good value. Maybe not. It might not feel like it immediately, but 2 years from now, people I think would look at it as a good contract.
It's like
I know,
paying Buda Baker. We
right?
paid Buda Baker, and he was the highest paid safety. No one understood it. And now Jamal Adams is, and I would say unequivocally, Buda Baker is the better safety. So the Cardinals ended up getting a good deal on what I think is the best safety in the NFL. And now guys are getting paid more. And that's 100%. The same thing that's going to happen with Kyler.
100%. Like that deal, some people question it in the national media when it first got signed, and now you look at it compared to that Adams deal. Yeah. Piner saying all NFC teams make the playoffs. Think it was ridiculous, but after valuing teams, it's realistic. I think run game only. Yeah. I think so. I mean, I would say I think it's absolutely possible, right? I do think if I had to place a Vegas bet on 3 or 4 NFC West teams making the playoffs, I'm picking 3 because I think probability wise, that's the wiser bet.
Yeah.
But I don't hate this. Want to real quick. Thank you, Red Sea, for the super chat, man. Appreciate you. And again, go. All right, you all need to let me know. Is that video going to be annoying, or do you want that every time you see a super chat? You all let me know, because if you think that's annoying, but if you like it, then you bet I'll do that. But Red Sea just sent you one of my mock drafts. Question: do you think we'll look at another college coach or go with proven NFL coach if we fire K2? I'll check out your mock draft. Thank you, Red Sea. So what do you think if we move on from Cliff, what do you think we do?
I think you go the proven route. If you've been proven wrong with what was, I think it was a risky move. A college coach without a winning record, not a Nick Saban or Pete Carroll with national championship pedigree. You go with a proven guy, someone who's been a coordinator somewhere, that's been in the league for 10, 20 years. I think they probably go back to that.
I think if you can get, I think a lot of people tell me if Lincoln Riley came out, get whatever job he wants kind of thing. If you can get the guy like that everybody wants, maybe college. But if not, I think if they move on from Cliff, which, I don't necessarily think they will, but if they have a bad enough season, they will. I think you go with someone who's like an offensive coordinator, like a Brian Dable or someone like that. I think you go a young coordinator, but from the pros. That would be what I would pick. I also want to just, Calvin, I don't know if you were here earlier, but I just want to thank you. Your super chat, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you were the very first super chat for the channel. I took a screenshot of it, saved it. So if you just got here, watch the replay. I definitely gave you huge thanks and props. Thank you so much. Together, Simmons and Collins have a lot to prove this season. I'm thinking both will. Yeah, I mean, 2 young linebackers, thrown to the fire. Absolutely. But I think they're up to the task, right? Piner was surprised we didn't go after Josh Norman. I mean, they might have kicked the tires on the idea. I don't know. I don't know that Josh Norman is better than the guy right now, Rasul Douglas, who's on the practice squad. I don't know. I mean, they might still bring in a vet. There's still time, between now and the start of the season. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think they're going to stick with the 4 guys they got right now, or do you think they're going to change it up?
I think they're going to bring in at least another veteran guy, and it's not going to be a big name. So it might even be a name that no one recognizes, but someone with some starts in the NFL, because that's just a young room, other than Robert Alford, who you can't 100% rely on.
Right. Yeah, I think if they bring someone in, it's going to be a veteran, but not necessarily come in and be that starter. I think they want to. No. I think they want to go with Alford. And I think when they're in those 3-4 looks, I think it's going to be Murphy and Alford. When they go to the nickel look, they're going to bring in Wilson, put him on the outside, move Murphy into slot. And I think what they'll end up doing is, and then they've got Gowan and Barku, right, who both young, unproven players. So I could see them bringing in a veteran to be that fourth cornerback who, is more of a kind of a backup or kind of emergency kind of situation. So yeah, for sure. Looking for questions. Let's see if Cardinals ever won to name on East Coast game. Have they? I know there was that was a stat they talked about that they didn't win many, or like it'd been a long time. I have to imagine they have, but it's not many. That is an issue, right? Going 0-1 is inevitable. All right, here's a question. Okay, two of them. Okay. Do I think Kyler? Are you going to win a? Oh, not this Kyler. Okay, we'll win a.
Not
Super
this
Bowl.
Kyler.
Yeah, no. In Madden you might, right? But
I've won multiple.
Yeah,
won so many.
I don't know. I got my questions. If you can't beat Jacksonville, so I don't know. Do you think he'll win a Super Bowl with the Cardinals at least once in his career?
Yeah, I do think he'll win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, it's hard to tell, right? Because that's just so hard to predict. But, we've got, you've got Tom Brady can't play forever, right? We hope. I don't know.
He might,
right? I'm not. I'm not going to say that he definitely will, but I think the talent's there, and maybe I'm a little optimistic here, right? Real quick, want to throw a huge thank you. Pinor, this is a good dude, Pinor. Again, connected with him through CG Ruthless Sports, but really good dude. Not a Cardinals fan, but good luck to you guys this year, unless you guys are playing 49ers. He's a Niners fan. Thank you, Pinor. And again, to you. Right, so thank you. We had a question here. What about Andy Lee? He slipped a bit last year. His average make you a bit nervous. What do you think, Kyler?
I'm not nervous about Andy Lee yet. And it says something about how good of a punter he's historically been that his average is starting to slip, and he's still going to be a top half punter. So yeah. I'm not worried about it yet. I will obviously have to replace him soon, but I'm not even thinking about Andy Lee at this point.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it either. Of all the positions you worry about, obviously you hope we don't have to rely on him too much for offense as well. But I would say to add to that, I think our special teams as a whole is really good. Our gunners and our guys. So I think even if he does slip a little bit, I think we'll make up for it with our good special teams play. And if he slips bad, I mean, Ryan Winslow, is a guy they like that they could bring back. I'm not worried about it. I don't think it's going to – here's what I would say. Even if he does have a bit of a slip, I don't think it's a big difference maker for them, right? Just want to thank Lennon Wolf, if you don't know him, he's an up-and-coming YouTuber. He's a Cardinals fan. Followed me on Instagram, Twitter. Thank you. I followed you back on Twitter. I saw that you were doing a live stream with CG Ruthless. I'm going to go back and check that out later. So awesome. Got a question here. Do you believe that letting P2 go was an overall bad decision? I'll let you start.
No. It made me sad at first because Patrick Peterson was one of my favorite Cardinals since I was in high school. Loved watching him get better and be dominant, but he just simply wasn't what he used to be. And he didn't show anything in 2020 that seemed like he was coming back. So no, I was sad about letting him go, but I think it was the best decision for the future of the team. Maybe not for this year, but for the future. Yeah, I agree. Early in his career, he seemed like the guy who was coming in who I hoped could be the player who carried the mantle for Larry Fitzgerald, is that leader and that face of the franchise. And he seemed like that kind of guy. And, then the PED thing happened. Then, him saying he wanted to trade and then walking that back. And then,
and then his play declined. It dropped off, and he might have a better season this year with, he's got a good coach there, Zimmer, who knows how to coach defensive backs. He might have a better season there, but the last 2 or 3 years here, he graded very poorly, lots of penalties. And I think it was the right move. And even if he does have a good year, I still think it was the right move because he was going to command a bigger contract than I think it would have been worth. I like the Malcolm Butler move. And if Malcolm Butler had worked out this, I think Malcolm Butler was better last year than Patrick Peterson was. And I think he would have been an improvement. We're worried about the cornerback room, and understandably so, but the Cardinals can't know that Butler was going to, retire, at least or when they first signed him. I would have maybe liked to see them get, I think Steven Nelson was the guy that people were talking about who ended up signing, I think, was it with the Eagles for a contract that wasn't as much as it seemed like. So, but yeah. So I think it was the right move, that's my view of it. So yeah, absolutely. Question. Okay. Jordan's got a question here. What's more likely, DJ Humphries becoming a bona fide elite LT or Byron Murphy becoming a top 15 corner? I'll let you start with that.
What is more likely? I guess DJ Humphries, because he's pretty much already there. No one talks about the fact that he's an elite left tackle, but he graded as an elite left tackle last year. So you can even argue that he already is, or is at least like right on the cusp of it. And Byron Murphy has all the potential in the world to become a top 15 corner. And he definitely could. But if we're only answering what's more likely, I think Humphries being an elite tackle.
So this is a tough one actually for me because on one level, the question is framed with a lower bar for Byron Murphy. A top 15 corner, I mean, is really good, but that's, we're talking like that's the top half of a cornerback one, right? So is he, if you take all the cornerback runs in the league, is he in the top half, right? And I think that's definitely a possibility. And if, again, like we talked about earlier, if you're going just by PFF grading, that's, Malcolm Butler was that last year, so I think that's absolutely possible. And with Humphries, I mean, he graded, I think it was the fourth best left tackle in the league, I think, for PFF last year. But at the same time, that was his best grade by far. So, the part of me that has a quantitative background says, that is at the outlier. So
there's not enough data yet.
Right. So, does he regress to the mean and end up becoming a guy who's a top 15 tackle with a PFF grade of 78, which is really good, but not what he did last year. So I think it's sneaky, a tougher question. Jordan, you have a future in Vegas with studying these prop bet lines, because you're picking some good ones in terms of aligning that up. So I would actually go with the Byron Murphy one, but I think both of these are distinct possibilities. Okay. If you're defining a bona fide elite left tackle, is that top 5 left tackle year in, year out, right? Or something like that. So let's see. What if Cardinals so they were a 4-3 under Wilkes, but they're a 3-4 kind of, but they play a lot of nickels. So do you reckon the Cardinals can crack top 10 in every major defensive set? So so let's say, what are we considering that? Sacks, interceptions, yards allowed. Is there anything else that you would include in the major rushing yards allowed, passing yards allowed, sacks and interceptions? What do you think?
I think it's possible, for sure. We're already 4th in sacks last year. I don't know. I actually don't know how to answer this one.
So, saying passing and rushing defense. Okay, so here's what I would say. Can they? The answer to can is yes. Will they? Here's what I would say. I think they have a good chance for sacks to be in the top 10. In fact, that's a really strong bet. I think interceptions, I'd say no, because I don't think they're particularly ball hawking defense, but it's possible. I think rushing defense, possibly, because they're going to be, and not necessarily because I love their run stuffers, but I do think their linebackers will be help. That having good linebackers will help, but I think they're going to be more, if their offense is as good as we hope, teams are going to be passing more. But I think passing defense top 10 is probably that, and interceptions, the two that are least likely, especially with our cornerback concerns, right? So that's how I would kind of shape that out. Should we take Jordan Phillips to court for stealing from us? Maybe, right? What are your thoughts on Jordan Phillips, Kyler?
No, I guess we shouldn't take him to court, but right. He has played 266 snaps in 9 games, and we gave him $30 million. It didn't turn out to be a good signing, but I also don't think that there was any way to know that when we did it. But like you said about Humphreys not being a bona fide elite left tackle yet because there's not enough data, well, kind of the same situation with Jordan Phillips when we signed him. There wasn't enough data out there for us to justify that deal, but we made it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, when they signed him, I looked at it, and the sacks, was it 9.5 sacks or whatever in grabbing your headset? Yeah, the 9.5 sacks or whatever that he had in Buffalo looked nice, but it wasn't like his sack rate per quarterback hurry or pressure was really kind of abnormal. It was kind of an outlier. So I think he converted a lot of more sacks than you would expect. And his PFF grades have never been good throughout his career, even in that season when he had all those sacks. So I actually look at it and think I think you look at it and maybe they shouldn't have signed him in the first place. They needed a defensive lineman when they signed him, so I get that. But they took a flyer on hoping that he wasn't just a flash in the pan. But I think when you look at, I don't think it was a good signing from the beginning, because you look at like his PFF grades, and not that that's the end all be all, but that tells you that how he does in other parts of the game, not just getting a few sacks. Lennon wants, we're going to be live someday, trying to make a schedule. Hey, someday we'll get you on here. Keep plugging it away. So keep at it, man. Keep doing your thing. Keep learning. Keep growing. Does Kingsbury need an OC? What do you think?
I don't necessarily think he needs a coordinator, but I think he needs a game manager of some kind, some other coach to take some of the late game management out of his hands, because he has not grown in that area, I don't think.
Yeah, I've talked about this before, that I do think he needs someone to lighten the load, help take some things off his shoulders so he can focus.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. You don't bring an offensive coordinator to be the play. You hired Cliff Kingsbury to be a play caller. In fact, you built a coaching staff around him with veterans like Vance Joseph and Sean Kugler, so that you didn't, so they could carry some of that load. If he's not your play caller, then the whole rationale for having him as your head coach is out the window.
Exactly.
Right? So do I think they brought in, was it Clements, I think last year, who was like the
passing game coordinator.
Yeah. So if you want to have some guys to help him carry the load, but if he's not your play caller, then there's no purpose of having him, right? So yeah, let's see. I think the area major jump run defense. Yeah, I think I could see that. We got some added beef there. So just going through preseason, get a lot of sacks, but running spurts. VJ does exotic blitzes, so the sacks will come. It will be about, yeah. So yeah, they're going to get a lot of sacks, I think, absolutely. Chandler Jones, Marcus Gold, JJ Watt, Dennis Gard going to be the sack leaders, hopefully. Yeah, probably, right? Here's a question. Okay. Score prediction for Tennessee game 34-27 Titans, sadly.
That's probably spot on. That actually is probably exactly what I would say.
I mean, I think that's a good. I haven't really thought about those score predictions, and I'll be honest. I don't do a lot of. I'm not really. I don't do a lot of score predictions. I mean, I can come up with a guess. I think games go. Man, it just who knows. But I think that is a really good guess. I could see it being a little bit lower scoring game. People think it'll be a high scoring game because defenses usually start out, a little ahead of offenses early in the season. Yeah. But man, I think, Jordan, you should really check out a job in Vegas making lines, man. So, hey, Lennon, you're asking about doing a live stream. Well, let's put that a little more down the road, but maybe we'll get you on here at some point. But keep doing your videos, keep plugging away, man. Cattle Dog's here. He's a regular commenter. Thanks for being here, man. See everyone here. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, Titans have a lot of players on the COVID-19 list, so we'll see how that comes into play, right? So if the Cardinals win, that could be why, right?
Yeah.
So we got a question with our corner issues and Titans solid wide receivers. You think would be a shootout, high scoring game week 1? What do you think?
I see both sides of it. Like, I see what you just said about defenses usually come out a little bit ahead, but also Titans don't have a great cornerback group either.
Right.
We don't know what we have yet, but both teams have very good wide receiver cores. So yeah, it's absolutely possible that there's a lot of points in this game, especially we're going to be starting probably a rookie cornerback. So there's a lot of possibility for points. So I think Alpha Hills might be onto something.
It's possible. Absolutely. I just think that this cornerback situation isn't going to be as bad as people think. I'm not saying it's going to be elite, but we're going to put pressure on teams with our, pass rushing. And I think the fact that both of our inside linebackers are really good coverage linebackers. I mean, Zaven Collins, even though he's a big linebacker, was really good in coverage. And then obviously we know Isaiah Simmons is like, I don't necessarily think he would play cornerback in the NFL, but he could play safety in the NFL and almost play quarterback. So I think that's going to help our cornerbacks more than people maybe think. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. Right. I mean, man, sometimes we can predict all we want and things just go really sideways from anything we predict.
Yeah.
Rashard Lawrence, is he the answer at nose tackle? What do you think, Kyler?
I think he has a lot of potential. I actually liked quite a bit of what I saw from Lawrence, and I loved what I saw from him at LSU in college. Mm-hmm. I'm totally comfortable with him not being the guy right now, though. I think that's still Corey Peters. I'm glad he's back, and I'm glad Lawrence has at least another year with Corey Peters. But he could be the answer. Yeah, I'm not going to discount that.
Yeah, he didn't grade particularly well his rookie season, but that happens. I think Corey Peters is the guy, unless he gets injured for this season, they might rotate them in some. Could he be for the future? Absolutely. And that's not a vital position, because of how much they play nickel. That position is not even on the field all that much unless they're rotating him in for those, essentially when you go into those nickels, it looks like a 4-3 front, except it's more like a 4-2. So you have two defensive linemen, and then you got Jones and, like Marcus Golden playing more like defensive ends sometimes. So in those looks, he's not really even in there, which is a lot of time. So I think he could be the answer because teams aren't going to invest a lot in trying to find a better answer, for nose tackle. You don't need to, right?
Yeah.
So long-term, yes, absolutely. A name we should look at, Zach Allen. Think he'll have breakout year. Hey, listen, was he in the third round? They picked him. I think player they really liked out of Boston College. He's had some injury issues. I think he. I don't know. My thoughts on your interior defensive line is that unless you can get an absolute stud like Aaron Donald or JJ Watt, what you get is you just get a stable of solid guys that you rotate and kind of rotate in the interior defensive line. And I think he can be a solid guy there, that defense, that 3-4 defensive end in there. I don't know. What do you think about Zach Allen?
I like Zach Allen. I think he's had a lot of bad luck with injuries, but he has it. He has some indescribable quality that I've never put my finger on, but I like Zach Allen.
Yeah.
So if he stays healthy, have a breakout year, it might be a little tough this year when you've got a JJ Watt on your team. But yeah, he could.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm with you there. Am I ridiculous for thinking that Rondale Moore could be in the conversation for offensive rookie of the year? I don't pretend he'd win it, but I feel like his name will come up. This was one of my predictions that he'd be in the top 5. What do you think? I'll let before I chime in.
I don't think it's ridiculous at all. I'm with you that I don't think he'll end up winning it, but I'm with you and I'm with Joseph. I think he's going to be in the conversation. He's going to be a rookie that produces his rookie season.
Yeah. I do think that him being in the top 5 was one of the more bold predictions. And it's not because I don't think he'll be good, but it's because there's so many rookie quarterbacks that look like they're going to play. Yeah. And those guys really, if they play, they put up a lot of numbers. And then the second part of why is because the numbers I'm predicting for Moore are kind of modest. I think he'll have some flash plays, but just because of, again, how many mouths there are to feed in that offense, he's not going to be that guy getting 800 yards receiving, I think. But listen, if I'm wrong, I'll be the first to admit that. I actually think if there's something that gets him in that conversation, it's because the plays we get from him and the yards we get from him are so exciting and are such difference-making plays and are Sports Center's, top 10. I think the buzz will it kind of help carry that some. I think that's his path to getting conversation is that people are really talking about him, even if the numbers aren't, through the roof. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think COVID will make an impact in week 1? I mean, yeah, in some capacity. Right. I think how much and to which team, I think it's going to make an impact all season.
Yeah.
I think we're just going to have to get used to this, that every week teams are having players that are out, on protocols. And I think that's going to be the new normal for every team. And if it's happening enough, and you don't want it to happen, but if it's happening frequently enough and every team's affected, in the end, it evens itself out. If that makes sense. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there are now 33 teams in the NFL, and one of them is COVID-19, and they're gonna take some W's and they're gonna hand out some L's throughout the season. And just like last year, COVID impacted teams. Larry missed some games. Different players missed time. Important players throughout the league missed time. So, will it make an impact in Titans, Cardinals? I don't know. Ryan Tannehill's back. I think they should be okay. But yeah, it's going to absolutely impact some team in week 1, which could also impact the playoffs later down the road. So COVID will be handing out some losses this year.
Right. So sorry. Next question we have. Let's see. Someone's commenting on Zach Allen. Yeah. Okay. Okay, here we go. Oh, done. Okay, he said done. Okay. If possible, should we replace AJ Green after the season with Odell Beckham, since Browns have been with him 2 years removed, injury? So what do you think about that one?
I don't know. I'm not a huge Odell Beckham guy, so I'm not the guy to answer this, I don't think. He's talented when he's not injured. I'll say that, but I don't think he's a good fit for the locker room.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah, if AJ Green has a really good season, I could see him commanding a bigger contract than we might be willing to pay next year. So maybe we don't bring him back. But if he has a good season and they like him in here and he fits and everything works out, I could see them bringing him back if he doesn't ask for too much. But if for whatever reason he does move on, I don't know that I like Beckham as the guy that they replace him with. But I think they would bring in another veteran unless they draft someone really high. So that's my thought. Yeah. Will D Hop get vaccinated? I don't know. that's who
knows.
Who knows? I'm gonna guess no if he hasn't by this point, but that's a whole other conversation. Thanks for being here, JP. Awesome. Which is Cardinals player to go? Okay, so which Cardinals players might we be letting go in the future?
There's a really good possibility we let Chandler Jones go after this year.
I agree. I mean, he may not want to re-sign even if we try. I think what they wanted to do, and I had a video where I talked about this. And I don't blame him for this. I think they wanted to see him on the field before they committed to an extension, but he might decide, sorry guys, you had your chance, and move on. But I mean, he's a great player, but yeah. I think, we talked about Kirk a little bit before. I think I could see them not re-signing him for the kind of money he might command. I don't know. I think those are probably some of the bigger names, that we look at. Yeah. Chandler Jones because bad luck with elite players. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. All right, I think that's all the questions. If there's anyone got anything you want to get in before we wrap up, get that question or comment in. Otherwise, we'll end. We're going to probably end really soon. But man, Kyler, this has been a really great conversation. Would you one more time tell folks where they can find you? We kind of mentioned at the beginning of the show.
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at @azcard_birdseye, and you can find my podcast that I do with a couple other writers from RaisingZona, Aaron Van Buren, and Reese Furlow, who have been in this chat. So if you've talked with them, we have a podcast that we do here on YouTube and also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify called the Cardinals Conversation Core. And you can find the links to our YouTube channel in the description below. But yeah, I had a lot of fun, Joseph. I love talking with Cardinals fans and seeing your questions because it gives me ideas that I've never thought about. So yeah, I have really enjoyed it.
Awesome. I've enjoyed having you here. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. Do you know I pissed off Steve Thatcher? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe Steve Keim. I don't know. Yeah. Well, I think we'll end on that. Kyle, thank you for being here. Yeah, I enjoyed talking with you. We'll do this again sometime Definitely. In the future. So everyone out there, thanks for being here. Jordan, one less than Kyler hitting 4,600 passing yards or Chase hitting 1,000 rushing yards, which is more likely? We'll end on this question and then go from there. So yeah, what do you think?
Most likely, Chase hitting 1,000 rushing yards, probably.
I think that's more likely of the two as well. Yeah, because with 17 games and such. Yeah, absolutely. So, but we'll see. Yeah. Thank you for being here, Mr. Mona. Thank you, everyone. Oh, we got some from Melbourne, Australia.
Hey.
I say this every time, but I love seeing Cardinals fans from all over the world being part of this community. It just always makes me happy when I see that. So thank you for being part of the community. Thank you for being here, and greetings to you from Georgia, USA. All right, well, we're going to end. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time, and we'll do this again. Everyone have a great weekend, and man, football is coming.